I just want to address the crux of his the crux of his, like, the canon of Scripture, because the reality is that the Protestant reformers received the canon of Scripture the exact same way as the church always received it. It never received the canon of Scripture by fiat.
Right.
So Paul historically handed letters to people who delivered them to churches, and those churches, let's say they formed the first generation of receivers, they're writing and copying them and handing them to a second generation. And so this starts creating a record, a trail of testimony and attestation over who wrote what. And so when we actually go back into the historical records of 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th century, and the writers talking about the canon of Scripture, they're literally doing what I would probably call a historical critical receptionism. They're saying, this one has never been doubted, therefore we accept it based on testimony, not based on ecclesiological or magisterial fiat.
Right.
Based on historical, reliable testimony. They considered that the first generation of receivers and second and third were reliably testifying and attesting to the authorship of these letters. But we see that there's actually dispute over letters like 2nd John or 3rd John. I think later on he makes an example about 2nd or 3rd John. 2nd Peter, James itself, Hebrews, Revelation. There were questions about those, but those questions were never settled through fiat.
Right.
It was always historical, critical receptionism. And that lasted all the way through the church, even when you get up to like someone like the era of St. John of Damascus. He doesn't have the exact same canon of Scripture as church writers earlier and church writers after him. And so if the generation of Basil the Great, the Cappadocians, the generation of Athanasius, the generation of Cyril of Alexandria don't have a magisterial fiat about the canon and yet can make theological claims, then there's no reason why we cannot use the same method as the church has always used.
Right.
That explodes his argument, because we use the same form of reception of the canon as his own church did and as the Roman Catholics did.
Yeah, thank you for that.